I want to love Maquette so much. I really, really do. And I love the story. I love Annapurna Interactive. I love walking simulators. I love puzzle games. This game has all of that with a significant emphasis on the puzzle solving and the puzzle problems that arise from a recursive world, which is, as you can see from the picture here, it's a world within a world, and then there's another world outside of it. It's a very interesting, fun mechanic, and that makes the game a joy to play. The problem is there is a litany of technical problems that literally made me nauseous to the part that I had to actually stop my playthrough and pick it up the next day because the frame pacing was so atrocious. And I'm going to talk about all of that as soon as you guys subscribe to the channel. Now, if I had to give Maquette a rating, you guys know I don't rate it at all. I would say this is a must-play game if you are playing on PC or on hardware that it can adequately, properly normalize this horrendous, janky mess of a game. The PlayStation 5 is not it. The PlayStation 5 does not run it very well at all. As a matter of fact, in just a minute here, we're going to jump over to the official PlayStation trailer, and you're going to see there's actually skipping and juddering in their own trailer, which is indicative of what you're going to see. But I need to start off by saying the technical problems really do ruin this experience, I think, more than anything. And it's unfortunate because it is a really cool idea. The idea of this recursive world, which is like a world built within a world, built within a world. So anything you change in one area will change the worlds around you. So there are some basic things here. You could see like moving a block in this world here will actually move it on the outside of the world out there. And you can take objects and make them smaller or larger. You can access things from the larger world looking down, which changes things in the smaller world. And some of the gameplay we'll show in a minute. It'll kind of make sense. The reason I'm not showing gameplay, by the way, is because I don't want to give too much away. A puzzle game is really best explored on your own, and I don't want to give too much of it away. Needless to say, the puzzles were good, and you think you have it figured out. I promise you don't. They keep making new twists and variants, and each zone is different, a new mechanic. Towards the end, it does unfortunately devolve back into just a very basic walking simulator. There's a lot of times where you're just walking straight up, reading story and listening to conversation between this guy and this woman, and they meet and they fall in love and kind of what happens with their relationship, which was very touching to me. I actually really did enjoy that piece of it. But there is a lot of that towards the end, and you kind of get away from the puzzles a little bit too much. And then at the end, they throw in a really tricky puzzle to kind of close the whole experience out. And that is the story pacing. But unfortunately, I think that runs a really bad narrative as well with the frame pacing. Now, frame pacing and frame rate are different, okay? Frame rate is a 60 frame per second game means every second you're going to get 60 updates. Logically, you would assume that every 1/60th of a second you would get an update. But what if you didn't? That's what frame pacing is. So let's say maybe you take a second and then, you take a 60th of a second, you don't update. You take another 60th of a second, you don't update. And then over 1/120th of a second, you update twice. The game will still render at 60 frames a second, but it will not be a smooth experience. It'll be very jittery and jumpy. As a matter of fact, I'm going to play this is the official PlayStation trailer from their official PlayStation channel. This was last year's gameplay, and you will see that it jitters in their own official trailer. It is so jarring that it literally made me sick. I had to stop playing because I got this motion sickness where the game just doesn't run smooth. And I don't know if it's a CPU bottleneck or what, but you'll notice it, and I'll go ahead and point it out when I see it. You'll get to see a little bit of kind of the puzzle solving and kind of what goes into it. Everything in the world is connected in a way that forces you to think about objects and rooms in a very different way that you would normally think about them. And I loved it for that. I love their walking simulators. I'm a big fan of them. There is a lot of walking in this game, a lot of walking, but there's also a lot of puzzle solving too. And there's also a lot of, thinking about how an object should work in an area. Like right here, there's a block in the way. You cannot proceed because the block is in the door. But you'll notice that as the world nests back in on itself, you are able to take that block and move it. And when you move it, you'll actually move it in the nested world outside of it. And this is a recursive world. There's another world outside of that. This is a simple kind of demonstration of how when you move something, you can see as soon as this character drops it, you look, the block is actually moved, which would allow you to progress to another location, which is actually really, really cool. Now, you're probably noticing already some of this screen jumping. Now, you might say, "Oh, Jim, you're being you're being silly." But I'm telling you, when you are playing this game, these sweeping turns that you have, the frame rate legitimately will just, it seems like it's playing as a flip book for a second. And I went upstairs with my wife. We started playing it together, and she had to stop playing. She's like, "I am getting nauseous," and I started getting nauseous. I'm like, "Oh, you're right." It was a lot to take in. There you can see really quickly. I'm just going to go ahead and pause it here. You can see the block here, and then you see another world behind it of the block even bigger, which is cool. And this mechanic is played out quite a bit, where you'll see things in the horizon that force you to think about things closer, or you'll have to turn back into the smaller world that looks almost like, a little dollhouse and manipulate stuff there. It plays on that quite a bit. And I think what helps this game in the puzzle solving, just as a tangent on that, is that your ability to progress, you think you know what you have to do because you're like, "Oh, I just got to go out one more world and change something and come back." But they constantly made the puzzles fun where it wasn't that simple. And I don't want to give too much away because I think you should play it, just not on PlayStation. Now, what ultimately happens with the frame pacing is that you have a hard time controlling your character when you pick something up because you'll move and the game will almost kind of like snap into place. It'll snap objects where it thinks you want to place them rather than where you actually want to place them, which sometimes is at a deterrent to the fun of the problem solving in of itself. There are other times too that the game will get confused where you should be placed. There's a lot of breaking the boundaries in a game like this. You're going to be jumping outside of places you shouldn't be in. You're going to be moving through areas that, it seems like you're breaking the game, but it's intentionally designed to force you to think outside the boundaries. Like here, like you think like, "Oh, there's a wall, I shouldn't be able to progress there." Well, guess what? Now you're outside the world and you can, and that's actually how you play. So it's fun. The problem is because of the just significant technical problems with this game, it's hard to play. And you're going to be like, "I know this is the right solution. Why isn't the game accepting what I want it to do?" And you're going to see that happen again and again and again. And it's a beautiful world. And I want to stress that there are other worlds. I think there's 6 chapters total in this game. They all take place somewhere else. This is just the very first chapter. So I don't think you figured it all out just by watching the trailer. There's so much more depth to this game. And the way that the music kicks in at certain points and the way that they kind of take control away from you to show you these very cinematic drawings that kind of come to life, it is very touching. And I think if you're somebody who has gone through what these characters go through, you'll be able to relate a lot better. And I think when the credits roll, it's going to hit you in the feels, because it hit me in the feels. It really did. And I was like, wow, that really got me. It was very emotional. I was very invested in these characters, and I was interested to see kind of what would happen to them. But ultimately, I just keep going back to how bad the controls are and how frustrating it is and how much skipping you're seeing and how the technical problem, it was built on Unity, and it's just like, I don't know if they didn't know how to code it correctly. They threw way too much at this game. And you're just getting a lot of skipping and you're getting a lot of jarring movements, and it takes away from it, I mean, even it says here in the blog, the puzzles give you a lot of aha and mind-blown moments. And I will admit, I had quite a few mind-blown moments where I was playing and I was totally stumped on what to do. And my wife was like, "Well, did you try this?" I'm like, "That won't work. That's a dumb idea." And that was the right idea. Something you would never think of doing. It's cool. And I do agree, it is a message of understanding the physical world, the mind, and then the heart. I have to say, really, I love this studio, and I love the work they do. They know how to tell a story. They know how to inject music, and they know how to inject phenomenal voice acting, and just when to give you control and when to take it away. It's masterfully done. You'll beat the whole game in maybe 4 hours at most, maybe a little faster if you're a little smarter than me. But I think, The experience, while it will leave you feeling something emotionally for the characters, definitely I did. I think it'll also leave you with a lot of sickness mentally, just of like, ugh, my eyes hurt, my brain hurts from trying to process this, and frustration for all the times that you tried to do something right and you just couldn't because the game just wasn't up to snuff. So that's unfortunate. I wanted this to be better. I think it would be phenomenal on a high end PC, but in terms of picking it up on the PlayStation Store and playing it, I would highly recommend against it. Hope you guys found this video informative. Leave some comments below. Spoilers free, please. I don't want to ruin it for others. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please take care of yourselves. And until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.